the industries where AI, MI has caused a disruption journey of digital transformation. We're talking about artificial intelligence is redefining industry by offering personalization, automating processes, and disrupting how we work. In modern times, AI is embraced by every industry from healthcare to government. The sectors of focus are healthcare, automobile, logistics, manufacturing, supply chain, retail, and e-commerce. Well, we have with us our panelist, Juliana, Cheah, the Regional Director Technology, Essilor Group, Singapore. He's a world leader, a key player in visual health with market capitalization of $57 billion. At Essilor, Juliana oversees the digital transformation for Asia, Middle East, Russia, South Africa, with a strong focus on B2B initiatives. The company is named by Forbes as one of the world's 100 most innovative companies and sits amongst the top 100 publicly traded companies as having the highest innovation potential. We also have Gaurav, Bhasin, CEO, Mudah, Malaysia. Well, Mudah.my, Malaysia's leading C2C marketplace. Gaurav is a business transformational leader who operates at the intersection of psychology, technology, and business. He's adept at harnessing technology to solve user problems, embedding adaptability, and creating people-first organizations. We also have Alan Shaw, the CEO, GoCar Malaysia. Well, Alan is currently the CEO of GoCar Malaysia, which is an on-demand car sharing platform with over 400 locations in 72 cities across 7 states in Malaysia, and recently the Chief Executive Officer at Go EV Charger, which is an e-mobility operator to provide and operate the charging infrastructure for electric vehicles. We also have Keerthi Kumaravelu, Global Head of Growth Strategy, Zespri, Singapore. Well, Keerthi being the Global Head of Growth Strategy at Zespri International, which is NZ's largest horticultural exporter, managing 30% of the global category across 54 countries. While Keerthi is a firm believer and a champion of innovation and technology-led growth in organizations she's a part of, driving digital and structural transformation. Well, this entire panel discussion is going to be moderated by Galuh Alifani, the head of business Tokopedia, Indonesia. Well, Galuh is currently the head of business operations and product for new business arm in Tokopedia. Well, prior to joining Tokopedia, she was a consultant in the Boston Consulting Group, where she also helped many companies undergoing digital and customer experience transformation. With this, I'd like to welcome our panel, who has taken out their valuable time and joined us. Over to you, Galuh.
Thank you, Bhavana. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and hope you all have a good start of the day, and welcome to the World AI Show Malaysia. And this is, as I'd like to call it, the Digital Transformation Panel. So by way of introduction, I'm Galuh Alifani, and I will be your moderator for this panel today. So in this session, we will be having a nice, interesting discussion with some great panelists that Bhavana just mentioned earlier about the application of AI, personalization, automation, machine learning, data analytics, and all its derivatives in disrupting different industries and how it gave an enormous implication to many aspects of both company and the market itself. So if you have any questions at any point during this panel session, please do leave your question in the Q&A section, and we will then pick it up at the end of the session today. So before we begin the session, I think Bhavana has just mentioned and introduced our panelists for today, but I'd like to welcome them again to this World AI Show today. So first we have Juliana Chua, the Regional Director of Essilor Group Singapore. Hi, Juliana.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you.
And we have the second one, Gaurav Bhasin, the CEO of Mudah Malaysia. Hi, Gaurav.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
And we have Alan Cheah, the CEO of GoCar Malaysia. Hi, Alan. How are you doing?
Hi, Galuh. Thanks for having me.
Great. And last but not least, we have Keerthi Kumaravelu, the Head of Strategy at Zespri Singapore. Hi, Keerthi.
Hi, Gaurav and everyone. Nice to be here.
So thank you for all the incredible speakers for your presence today. And to start off, I think since we have a quite diverse set of panelists and coming from two different regions, Singapore and Malaysia, I think why don't we start with each one of you just introduce a bit about your company, your work, and how you think AI is currently being implemented in your company and how it has disrupted your company since the inception of its implementation. Maybe we can start with Juliana.
Right. So I think with Essilor, we are already in the eye care business. So we're in the business of actually making lenses for consumers like you and I. But I think the biggest impact that I actually see in the healthcare industry is really how AI is being used for treating eye diseases, right? So with eye diseases, there will be the ophthalmologists, and there will be all the specialists that's actually supporting the entire ecosystem. So really for you and I, the patient, we can see that AI is really helping with imaging system to be more accessible. So all these images that allow AI to actually read everything and actually be confirmed by the specialist is what is the treatment that is related for the patient itself. So like for a retina specialist, the AI is really like an assistant to organize the information. He could actually triage the patient as well into providing a working diagnosis. And then thereby also allowing the setting up the appropriate arrangement for the diagnosis appropriate, and also the procedures that will be needed for the patient. So what can then be thereafter is the retina specialist, when meeting with the patients, could be more focused, more efficient, and have a very effective evaluation and the management of the patient. So overall, we could see AI coming in really as an intelligent assistant to result in a better patient outcomes, decrease the waiting times, and also a better, wiser utilization of our resources overall. So I would like to see that AI is really not replacing any human, but it's really giving a tool, right? Much like when we see doctors today, they have the stethoscope that they're using. It's not to replace the tool, the doctor, but really giving him a tool to enable better treatments to the patient.
Great, thank you, Juliana.
No problem.
And maybe from Mr. Gaurav, what about Mudah in Malaysia?
So Mudah is one of the largest C2C marketplaces in the country. We are part of the Carousel group in the region. And I guess as a C2C marketplace, challenge is a little bit different than some of other businesses around, but our challenges are largely of scale, and especially as just some numbers, we get approximately 1/3 of the Malaysian population adult population visiting us on a monthly basis. At the same time, there are close to 1 million listings that are put in by individuals and businesses on our platform on a monthly basis. And it could be anything from cars to cameras, or properties to plants, or mobile phones to motorcycles, and watches to washing machines. So it's a very wide variety of items that come onto our platform. So our problems largely are problems related to scale and variety and diversity. So that's the kind of problems we generally face. And in that context, for us, the places where AI is making or has even further potential to make impact are quite a few, but maybe I'll focus on 3 right now. And those are the buying experience. And because of this variety, what this variety brings, and a huge amount of people coming to the platform, there are opportunities to be able to personalize that experience for people, because of what they may be looking at a certain point in time may be different from what we may be able to show them if we were to able to give everything in a normal pattern. So I think the first problem to solve is related to optimizing the search and discovery experience of our users who are coming onto our site. And that's the different things we've tried in that area, from personalized recommendations to bot assistance and image search. And I think in the future, a very exciting area there is likely to be voice search, especially because majority of the transactions, the majority of the browsing is happening on mobile devices, and typing to really do proper search on mobile devices is not a very easy thing. So I think that's a area of upcoming interest for us. The second one is related to trying to, again, provide customer experience at scale. So if you've got 1/3 of the population coming to you there will be problems, there will be issues, and they'll want resolution for those. And you want to be able to provide that experience at scale, and also a kind of a consistent experience without breaking the bank. Yeah. So that's where chatbots and chat assistants for us has a huge potential. And lastly, not but least, is in fraud management. When you're in a C2C space, all kinds of content comes in. As I was mentioning, we get close to 1 million ads into our moderation queues every month, around 40,000 a day. And trying to analyze behavioral signals on the fly to be able to classify them as good, bad, or suspicious behavior is a very important part of being able to put quality content in front of people. So I guess these are the few areas where we see AI being able to help in creating impact for our users.
Great, thank you, Gaurav. Keen also to understand from the transportation sector, maybe Mr. Alan can share a bit more about how it goes in there, the application of AI and the impact in the transportation sector.
Well, for us, it's a bit, well, the investment that we do for for car sharing, the Go EV chargers and such, it comes to the point that all these are very heavy investments, right? So on AI and machine learning, it focuses on two parts for us. One is always the customer service. How can we make our life, life easier for most of our users, you know? How can we predict the best rates for them, you know, and where's the nearest car to them, and so on and so forth. In terms of the utilization, you know, sometimes during the weekend, certain locations are high utilization and some locations are just lower utilization. And of course, on the back end for us, which is the maintenance of the car, because every time the car is sent for repair, then it's a downtime for us. We're losing money when the car is not working, right? And then you have users, which is very callous about using our cars as well. They're aggressive, they drive fast, therefore the risk of accidents also go up way higher. So how can we use machine learning and also AI to help us predict and also reward users such as this, right? So in terms of customer services, this is the part where most of us are already implementing AI in sense of preventing fraud, because it's almost similar to what Gaurav mentioned, right? In terms of fraud detection, is sometimes we get users who are not the actual users driving our car. So how can we use AI to mitigate that? And then also on giving the best rate to most of our top tier users, VIP users, then coming down to our low tier users, how do we create customer retention using predictive models in the AI part? As for machine learning, so what we did in that right now is basically how can we use in terms of fleet efficiency, right? The cars need sense of service, and based on how the car is being driven and how far the cars have gone, then we can almost bring the car in for repair and maintenance and bring the car back out for utilization immediately. So therefore, it really increases a lot of our efficiency right now. We are not fully there yet, but bringing in more of this tech coming in allow us to basically bringing up our fleet availability and also utilization. So for now, it's a very exciting space to be in. And of course, there's a lot of mistakes being made as well when they give us the wrong predictive data and we end up putting the cars in all the wrong locations and wondering why no one is picking up the car to use for the weekend. So it's something fun, and we're looking forward to see how else we can improve on our AI and machine learning as well.
Great, very interesting, Alan. Thank you. And Ms. Keerthi, keen to understand from Zespri specifically, and maybe in broader, general terms in the grocery or retail supply chain industry.
Yep. I think more than Zespri, I think it will be good to look at it from a broader agriculture perspective, right? If you look at agriculture, it's one of the most human resource heavy sectors, because you need to have the intuition, is this the right time to harvest, or is there a crop infection? So we tend to believe that robots are not capable of identifying infections and so on, but actually they are capable. There are already so many different tests around the world in terms of AI being able to actually go around a crop area and understand, is this the right time to harvest or is it not? It is able to think and make decisions, and if it thinks that it's a good time to harvest, it actually does the harvest as well. If there are actually infections that it sees, it starts to raise a red flag that, look, there are infections, we need to do something about it. This really helps the industry in terms of wastage reduction and so on and so forth. So, but what really excites me is not from a corporate perspective, right? Artificial intelligence. I think if I just look at myself as more as a layman, how does AI actually help me on the day-to-day basis where I see it to be going? Is how AI will end up actually making a lot of recommendations to us on a day-to-day basis, changing our habits and practices day-to-day basis. One of the things that we were discussing some time back is, what if AI actually is the one that's making decision on what's your grocery purchase for the whole week? It actually plans out a whole meal for you. It knows that your birthday is this coming month, or you're going to have a gathering at home this weekend. It actually decides what your meal plans are, what your grocery is, or it actually is able to detect in your fridge what needs to be replenished and is able to do that shopping for you. It doesn't even ask you. It actually has access to your credit card. It buys it. The shopping basket comes to your house. So if you think of it that way, then what does marketers do? We market to people, right? But if algorithms are the ones who are actually going to buy grocery or buy products for you, so the whole nature of marketing changes. It's about marketing the algorithm. I think, so if you look at things as technology and AI starting with the consumer and working backwards, then it really becomes exciting, because the consumer is the end person that you're really trying to really capture, right? So I think that's what is exciting for me.
Great, very interesting, Ms. Keerthi. I think a lot of interesting points from our panelists, that AI has given a lot of quite innovative solutions to the market, right? But I'm curious as well, keen to understand, with all this innovative solution coming in, there must be a challenge as well, right? In, like implementing these solutions around going through the digital transformation process. And for example, Keerthi, the way you mentioned how AI can shift the groceries, like people buying groceries behavior, or like predicting the weekly behavior of customers. What are like the challenges of making it happen? What are the challenges that the company has to undergo to actually go through this transformation? Yeah,
absolutely. You see, sometimes it is easy to envision an end goal, that this is how things should be, but working backwards and putting in place all the steps that the corporate has to take to get there is the difficult journey, right? I think many of the times we tend to think that it's a very simple process. So, and also because of that, we tend to expect too much too soon. And I think that's why a lot of people fail in that journey. So a digital transformation needs to have a very, very clear vision, and a very singular vision as well. You don't want to be too complex about it, especially if this is the first time the organization is going through that transformation. So with that clear vision, then working backwards, what are the capabilities, systems, processes? Who are the right people you need to get on board into your organization to go through that journey? Because many of the leaders, we don't, even the leaders before me, not really from the digital era, right? We had mobile phones when we were already quite old, but our children have mobile phones from the moment that they were born, right? So it's still different. We are in still different terms at right now. So I think as leaders in the organization, I think we need to start bringing in the younger generation who actually knows digital much more, and we need to have them build that transformation journey very clearly to. And usually, I mean, I have seen a lot of reports online about how 90% of transformation actually tends to fail. And sometimes it's not about motivation or etc., but the whole process, the execution, and not having the right people on board are many of the times raised as the challenges. So I think that's the thing. The most simplest things are, I think, the biggest challenges that we need to address as organizations.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Keerthi. Keen to understand from Ms. Juliana, maybe from the healthcare or retail health sector, what have you observe, maybe from your experience or from your knowledge, the biggest challenge of a company, especially from a traditional company, maybe undergoing a digital transformation process and like implementing AI-powered solutions?
I think I agree with what Keerthi is mentioning as well, to have an end goal and an end vision as to where the organization wants to go with. And what we then proceeded was actually to do it in phases. So in Agile, we will call it a minimum viable product, that we break down the entire bigger vision that you have to achieve into smaller achievable goals. And then the next thing is actually to execute and roll it out to the market to actually test and learn for the reaction that is coming from the customer. So a lot of times the vision turns out to be a big blueprint and it fails to launch. I think that's the problem of a usual waterfall execution of an IT project. And what we then do is, once we break it down into a smaller parts of the project, we test and learn from the market to see and synthesize with them what is the feedback that they have. So with that, we go into the next loop of continuous integration and development to develop based on what the customer feedback is. One project that I did previously with another organization was to actually learn about how could we automate all the hospital invoices. So that to us sounds like a pretty simple and straightforward project. But what we then learned was every hospital has a different receipt or invoice format, and that is proving to be a very big challenge for AI to actually react on all the different formats. So the capturing of the data and the processing of all the information to pay out the claims to the customer was envisaged, but it didn't turn out to be the way that we wanted it to be. The next thing that I probably also want to have a precursor is really to limit the amount of user specification. So if you have put in a good business analyst, usually we collect all the requirements, but that tends to be the downfall of any project as well, because it makes it so big that the project can never seem to be implementable as well. So it's also upon the time where you know when to say no and when to say stop. Let's push it out to the market first so that we get an immediate reaction and to see what is the next best format to proceed with.
Thank you, Juliana. Maybe I'd like to touch a bit more, towards the specific points here, because so we were talking about the challenges in implementing AI-powered solutions here, but what about like also the direct impact towards the business bottom line? So I think previously we discussed about how AI solutions has given a lot of innovative solutions to customer experience, product-wise, predicting customer behavior, but how does it translate into direct impact towards the business bottom line? And, also correlating with the challenges, I think AI also needs some amount of investment, right, in undergoing the whole process. How do we justify that investment with the impact towards the business bottom line? Maybe keen to understand from Mr. Gaurav.
Okay. I guess there are two questions here, right? So one is about the kind of challenges, and then how do you justify spending money for trying to solve that challenge? I think at the broad level, first thing I would say is that in terms of what are the challenges to implementing machine learning, the biggest challenges actually are, I'll say machine learning because that's the kind of application we normally go into. The biggest challenge is actually figuring out if the problem is worth solving via machine learning or not. A lot of times, individuals and teams are very excited by machine learning as a buzzword, and also technology engineers and analysts and everybody is excited about using new technology to solve a problem. So I think the first problem is really here to understand whether that is a problem worth solving by machine learning, or there are other simpler, easier, faster ways to solve the problem. Yeah, so whether it is a problem to be solved or not. And I think second is related to the fact that problems in machine learning, to me, in our experience, have not been machine learning related. They're everything that's around it. That's about how is the data collected that you're going to use for training the sets? What has been the monitoring infra from an execution perspective? What is the culture in terms of experimentation, is when to kill an experiment, when not to kill an experiment? So to me, the problems is not the machine learning code. Problem is everything that comes around it, which is also the bigger part of what makes it success or failure. And that goes into defining how to invest money behind it too. It is actually having a problem versus a solution mindset. So whenever people come and say, okay, this is a solution I want to use, the challenge to me, normally the question that would be asked by me is, what problem are we trying to solve? And is that problem worth solving first? And if it's worth solving, what are the different ways you could solve that problem? And if this is the best way to go and solve this problem, then generally opening up purse strings to invest behind it, even if it is based on certain plans and hypotheses, is not the biggest challenge, I would say. So I would say it's a problem versus solution mindset. And 90% of the time, or quite a large percent of times, people come with solutions versus actually trying to define the problem better. And then understanding whether this is indeed a solution that we should experiment for that problem. Yep. That's what I would say are the challenges to decide also how much money to spend.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Gaurav. Mr. Allen, how do you think, if you can specify a little bit more specifically into the direct impact of AI-powered solution to your businesses right now?
Ours is pretty straightforward, actually, because, like I say, our utilization is definitely based on the availability of our cars, right? So the solution that we come up with must be able to solve the bottom line for all our utilization, availability, how often the cars are being taken in for service, how long should they stay in the repair shop, and when it comes out, how fast can it be deployed to the location. So for us, that is always an immediate concern. So everything that we build right now is always geared towards solving the availability and also the turnaround time for those cars. And when you're dealing with inanimate objects, it's actually so much more easier to build a solution for. So it's almost same as what Gaurav said in the terms of and also Juliana as well, right? Every time you have to decide whether the problem is actually worth solving. For the fact, sometimes we also have invested money into solutions where the solution costs more than the problem. And and it's something that we are learning, because for the fact that another challenges that we face here is that how do we find the right knowledge base for us to build our solutions? Right now, especially in Malaysia, we do have limited in terms of skill sets and knowledge base when it comes to machine learning and AI. And it's something that we have to import from other countries to understand how can we use those solutions to basically create the effectiveness and efficiency of all our vehicles across the board. In terms of customer side, that's the same thing that Juliana faced, right? When you build a product out, you push it out, and how does the customer react to it? Are they happy with the product, or they're not happy with the product? And that also costs us investment time. So right now, also we are also looking into how can we manually solve the problem, and is AI and machine learning is something we really want for our customers, or can we just do it using a low barrier entry solution instead? So all in all, I'm still very new in this, and of course the biggest challenge to us is always cost, because every time we invest in a solution and find out that it's useless, then I have to report it back to my board of directors, and that's it. Then maybe I should just stop investing in so much machine learning and AI, because sometimes they don't even understand what we're trying to push for. So that's why Gaurav is really true when we mentioned that we have to identify the problem that is worth solving, especially when your purse string is so tight. And that's the current challenges and also the direct impact we have on our bottom line.
Great insights, Mr. Allen. Thank you. I think good points from the panelists, and I think to sum it up, 3 points of tips of essentially making it work is to have a clear focus, understanding the problem, and not to just overuse the term AI and the AI solution without actually understanding whether that will solve your problem, instead of just implementing it, right? So I think I'd like to also shift a little bit towards the more recent kind of events, right? I think we've discussed earlier about how AI has given quite a lot of innovative breakthrough, and how it impacted the business bottom line as well. But I think perhaps today, digital and AI solutions are especially more prominent and important during this difficult time, right? When we are faced with difficult markets during the COVID pandemic. So would like to get view from the panelists, maybe specific to your companies. How do the market or how do your company adapt in today's difficult pandemic situation using the AI solution? Miss Keerthi.
Sure. I wouldn't say exactly we use artificial intelligence. I think it's more manual at this point of time. But I can talk about it with a futuristic view that this can be made automated, and we can have an AI supported in future. It's but fundamentally, the AI is fueled by data, and regardless of the situation, is a good time, a bad time, like today with COVID-19, it's about collecting that data and saying what the market needs, the consumers, the customer needs, and being able to respond to that, right? There is as human beings, there's a limited amount of data we're able to collect and make sense of it and respond to it. I think where artificial intelligence can come through is it's able to have that mass data-driven processing and therefore data-driven decisions is much more agile and able to react to business circumstances way faster. Like one of the things, the most basic thing, vitamin C was a big thing because everybody knew that vitamin C is important for an immunity boost, and we want to be less likely to catch a cold or etc. So the whole search engine in terms of what's a good vitamin C or what are some natural sources of vitamin C really went up. If you just go to Google even today and see, it just completely spiked at the time of COVID. And definitely that's directly relevant for us. As a business, we are big on vitamin C. Our fruit has a huge amount of vitamin C. And we're looking into that data to see how do we then tell our consumers that, look, this is a great source of natural vitamin C. It's a very basic way of saying how do we collect and respond our data. But my point is there's so much of data that we must have missed out because there's just so much so we can do with the limited resources we have. So that is where I believe AI can really come in and help us be more agile. And situations like COVID isn't a one-off thing. We all know that the recurring, we all talk about how this is not going to be a one-off. In every few years, something's going to happen. May it be a pandemic or may it be an economic situation. But at such times, having the agility to react and respond, I think it's really powerful in a corporate.
Thank you, Ms. Keerthi. Mr. Allen, we know that the transportation industry is one of the more impacted industry by the COVID pandemic, right? But what about car rental? And then how does your company adapt to the challenge using AI? Oh, I think we lost Mr. Allen here. Let's move on. Maybe Ms. Juliana can also share your point of view about how AI is utilized to adapt during this pandemic era.
Yeah, I think so. There are two very interesting things that we did during this pandemic period. So the first one was we created an experiment of tracking the transport or the traffic that is on the roads. So we are leveraging on the data that we're seeing from the government that was monitoring the traffic flow. So with that, we kind of predict when is the business going to flow back, right? So when the traffic is low, generally people are not going out. And so as the traffic build up, we can then actually prepare our business to actually reopen the shops and everything, or reopen the manufacturing as well. So these are things that we do on an experiment basis, was more of using AI as a big data to track and the behavior of the consumers, the market, how are they reacting, and we do it across the different countries. So that gives us interesting analytics and insights as well. Mm-hmm. The second thing that is more for the customer that we are doing is, as you know, Essilor is really in the business of eye care, and we are providing lenses to all the optical shops. So for that, I think they are then our customers. So with the optical shops, what we did was to provide them with a customer platform. So with the customer platform, previously they were quite used to actually having the sales representative of the business consultant visiting them quite often to actually walk them through all our products and send them the invoices and have a look at all the instruments. Are they working nicely and fine in the shops? But with the customer platform, they are then given a digital tool to actually self-serve. So increasingly, because of the notion that we are not so able to actually visit our customers in the shop, we provide them with a digital platform. And with the digital platform, they can increasingly actually get to understand the stock behavior of what is happening and how are they ordering. They could also actually download their financial statements or access all the marketing information or even provide training to their staff as well. So I think in the short 12 weeks, we have opened up the digital platform to more than about 10 countries. And I think that helped our eye care professional to actually digitize in this pandemic as well.
Thank you, Ms. Juliana. I think we're running a bit out of time, but before going to Q&A, maybe I'd like to ask Mr. Gaurav as well for a little bit of insight from the e-commerce industry.
Yeah, so at least on our side, I would be honest that it is not directly AI that we used during the last few months of lockdown. Because we felt the data was already existing. So it was a lot about data in terms of creating a data room on what's happening and trying to merge the external data, for example, the traffic data, which was available via other reports for us, and also the models that different institutes had done on when the recovery would happen, plus looking at our own behavior of users on our site. We were able to, I wouldn't say by AI, but just by simple modeling, we were able to understand and quite accurately predict some of the returns to when the business would open up and make more deliberate decisions versus reacting to a lot of noise of information that was existing during this period. And it helped us stay quite sane and focused on solving user problems at that point in time versus predicting doom and gloom, and helped us be a lot more forward-looking, I would say.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gaurav. I think time is almost running out. Bhavana, over to you for the questions.
Yes, also Galuh, Alan has joined us back. So just in case if you would, you were waiting for him as well. So if you want.
Okay, sure. Alan, we were discussing about how, you know, your company adapts to the COVID pandemic situation using AI. And we know that transportation industry is one of the more impacted industry, right? But what about car rental in general? Like what kind of solution did you implement to adapt with it?
For us, is actually, so only during the pandemic, it was actually affected. Right moment when we lifted the blockages, the transportation actually went back to almost normal. So of course, we came up with various, also not fully machine learning. It's more so much on how can we, cater to the users that truly need the social distancing when it comes to traveling, right? And we implemented services where we understand which user would like to have a driver that doesn't have a driver, users that would understand that certain locations will be would have some of the COVID clusters. So in terms of fully changing how we run the business or implementing all the AI machine learning, we actually didn't do much of that because most of the time, GoCar is a car sharing platform, which already we are promoting social distancing by itself already. So therefore, we actually see an increase in our utilization when it comes to people traveling and commuting towards various locations. So we are just implementing what we already have done in the past, where we predict where all the locations are highly utilized and locations are just not that highly utilized. That's all to it, actually.
Thank you, Alan. Bhavana, should we go to the question? I think we have one question in the...
Yeah, we do have one question. So Atika asked that the common fear that most people will have is that AI will replace humans. How can we get them on board and get their support on the AI transformational journey? Now, that's a very interesting question. So Galuh, if you can take that forward with the panel.
Yeah, sure. Panelists, any of you would like to take this up for the starter? Miss Keerthi probably, or Miss Juliana.
Right, sure. So I think we have to see AI as probably a synergy with what the humans are actually supposed to do. There are jobs that we disregard and it just takes us too much time, right? So aside to AI, let's just probably bring it more rudimentary to even topics like RFID, right? Previously, actually taking a stock count or even finding where the stock is going to take any staff a long time, right? So imagine finding a pair of frames, eye care or iframes, right, in an inventory of millions of frames, right? So identifying where is this frame misplaced is going to take anyone a long time, and the benefits that you get from it is actually very low. So with RFID in place, we can actually easily identify where the missing stock is, what is the logistics time that is required to ship from one location to the other location. On another example, we have also put in a business intelligence group in our organization in the last 1 to 2 years. I think what we have seen is like to analyze the big data that is going through the organization just takes up too much time, right? So being able to actually look at all the data coming together and be able to tell us patterns are something that the robots do better, because they're going to monitor it 24/7 as well. So I think these are the ways that we should see how AI come together in synergy with the human rather than them taking away the job, because they are our eyes into what we cannot see.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you, Ms. Juliana. I think Mr. Allen wanted to say something as well.
It's very similar to what Juliana mentioned, right? And when we first implemented all the machine learning and AI within our company, right, you do get some team members which are not, which is performing very menial manual tasks, and they will also be worried that AI will replace their jobs and so on and so forth. So there is an education factor which we implemented, where we taught them that in such a way that AI and machine learning actually helps their job to be more effective and efficient. And any resistance to the machine learning coming on board will then actually make them obsolete. Unfortunately, to say that it is going to eliminate some part of the jobs and tasks within the group. And in those things, that is how then we could actually reskill some of those teams, able to help us to expand the effectiveness of the AI and machine learning that we implemented in all our fleet, our utilization, maintenance, and so on and so forth. So it is what it is when that's happening. So, but in full agreement to Juliana, it's actually bringing efficiency and effectiveness to a different level and helping one person to do more jobs instead of just focusing on a task that would probably take them half a day, usually during 2-3 years back.
Great, thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have more time, Vanna, for the other panelists, maybe two?
Galuh, maybe a minute if that's okay, if they can quickly.
Sure. Ms. Keerthi, do you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. I think the answer to that is, the reality is yes, of course, AI and the robotics and all of that, it is going to end up taking up some of the jobs that we humans would actually have been doing, right? But the thing is, I think in the shorter term, it's the jobs are more of low skills, something that helps us drive efficiencies, as Juliana and Alan were saying. So what we would need to do as individuals is about looking at upskilling ourselves. What is it that, not everything is absolutely replaceable by robots in our current set of technology, right? Maybe in the long term, we can see a very futuristic movie where, robots actually looks like humans and is able to operate just like a human being. That's a very different picture. But the current today, at least in our lifetime, I don't know if that's going to happen, but if that's not going to happen, then it's about looking at ourselves as individuals and saying, how can I upskill myself that I'm not going to be easily replaced by a robot? Yep. So I would think of it that way. And the answer is definitely a yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Keerthi. I think we're running out of time, Bhavana.
Yes, absolutely, Galuh. So I think, thank you so much for the entire panel for joining us today. It was incredible. Thank you once again.